And when it came to negotiating deals on houses, David Nixon was one of the best. According to his friends, he could sell a screen door for a submarine. I mean, he was a charismatic and lively guy whose smile was plastered across real estate billboards throughout the Dallas area. But who or what could David have gotten involved with that would cause his entire life to go up in flames? David Nixon was a larger-than-life real estate agent who worked primarily in Grapevine, Texas. Around 2002, the real estate market in the Dallas area was booming, and David had made a fortune. He spent his money on nice cars, fancy clothes, and, I don't know, nice vases. But one Sunday night, David Nixon's ex-wife walked into the police station to report him missing. Now, apparently, he'd missed a dinner meeting with their 10-year-old son that night, which was out of the ordinary for him. Despite the divorce, David loved his son dearly and made a point to never miss an opportunity to spend time with him. But now David wasn't answering his phone, and people were starting to worry. A few hours later, the police station got a call about a fire in the parking lot of an abandoned building some 10 miles away. A driver had been passing by when they saw the fire somehow burning on its own, so he pulled over to investigate. But when he got closer, to his horror, the witness realized that the source that was keeping the fire going was a human body. The victim was a large white male with brown hair who was wrapped in a blue tarp and a blanket, and it appeared some sort of an accelerant like gasoline had been poured on the body. Dental records confirmed the body to be David Nixon's, and after closer inspection, it looked as though whoever had disposed of David's body had first tried to shove it down a drainage ditch. Marks on the body as well as the drain nearby show that the body wouldn't fit and that the fire was most likely Plan B. That's awful. To be honest though, investigators were thankful that the body hadn't fit because that drain was 8 feet deep and they didn't think anyone would have found him if he ended up in there. So there was no sign of a struggle, which led detectives to believe that this wasn't the scene where David had been slaughtered. This was just the dumping site. The body was found wrapped in a blanket, which at the moment was one of the only clues officials had to go off of. They noticed that these teeny tiny wires in the mesh of the blanket, and they were like, okay, what's this? They realized that the wires meant that this was some sort of an electric or heated blanket that David had been wrapped in, which was even more helpful because it's not just a blanket, it's a specific blanket. Nice. The autopsy revealed a fractured rib, which showed that a round had been fired at David's left side, which traveled through his heart. The examiners looked at some of the unscorched tissue on the body to determine around what time David had expired. They estimated he had been gone around 36 to 48 hours before he was discovered that Sunday. That meant whoever pulled the trigger on David did it sometime around Thursday night or Friday morning. It also bore striking similarities to another unsolved case that had happened just 4 months earlier. Across the freaking street, a 22-year-old woman had also been found with a single bullet wound to the chest. She too had been wrapped up in a blanket, transported somewhere else, covered in gasoline, and lit on fire. But while the similarities between the two were glaringly apparent, so were the differences. First of all, the victims were just so different. One was this young woman, the other one was an adult male. Hers seemed like a crime of opportunity, while his seemed like a well-orchestrated plan. It was possible that the cases were connected, but they thought it was highly unlikely. Finally, a break in the case came when tire tracks were discovered less than 10 feet from where David's body had been. The marks indicated it was a dual-axle vehicle, aka it was one of those big boy trucks with the two tires next to each other on the back. Whoever drove that truck was the person who transported David's body there and was most likely their suspect. When theorizing a motive, investigators knew they were looking at most likely one of two options: love or money. David's ex-wife Donna potentially had both of these motives. They were also suspicious because David's ex-wife had reported him missing just 3 hours before he was found. It turns out that there were problems in their marriage, and the final chip in the glass was when David cheated on Donna with a young flight attendant. Donna would also be the one who would get David's $500,000 life insurance policy until their son was old enough to inherit it. Follow the money and see where it goes. But Donna was cooperating fully with the detectives, and they were starting to believe that she was telling the truth when she said she didn't know what happened. Her alibi for Thursday night and Friday morning also checked out. So then they moved on to David's second ex-wife. The second ex-wife also had an alibi for where she was at the time, confirmed by multiple witnesses. So do we have a third ex-wife or what? Police then turned their attention to David's current girlfriend, 32-year-old Tracy Frame. Tracy claimed the last time she saw David was Thursday, and she thought he was leaving for Vegas, where he liked to gamble. Unlike the other women, Tracy didn't have an alibi for that night. She said she was home alone, which meant no witnesses could corroborate it. That was when they found out that David's history wasn't as squeaky clean as they thought it would be. They found out that he had quite a bit of gambling debts and also was in trouble with the IRS. Tracy allowed investigators to search the home with luminol in cadaver dogs to detect if there was any evidence of fluids or decay in the home. And then a shocking discovery. Police found the controls to an electric blanket, but not the electric blanket itself. And they were like, ha, cool. One day later, police discovered David's white Lexus abandoned in a supermarket parking lot that was within walking distance from his home. There was no sign of a struggle or violence in the car either, but something immediately caught their eye. The seat of the car had been pushed up much further to the steering wheel, what you would expect for a 6'4" man like David. That meant it had most likely been driven by a smaller female last. But if only there was some sort of system set up so they could track who enters and exits their parking lot. When police asked David's family about his new live-in girlfriend Tracy, they said they didn't know her. He never brought her up. No one had ever met her, and she was a total mystery to them. Now apparently the two met at a party shortly after David's second wife had left him. After they started dating, David bought them 2 matching cars, a black Lexus for Tracy and a white one for him. And because he owed money to the IRS, he decided to put the house they bought together under Tracy's name, a decision he would soon regret. David made it clear at some point that he wanted control of the house again, but Tracy didn't want to give it up. This seemed like the missing motive they had been looking for. But there was still one big mystery to them. How could a tiny woman like Tracy move a body double the weight of hers all on her own? Neighbors remembered seeing a large rental truck in the driveway during the weekend David went missing. In the interrogation tapes, the investigators asked Tracy if there had been a moving truck in her driveway that weekend, but she stuttered a bit before pretending like she didn't hear what they said. She composed herself and claimed that the dumpster wouldn't have taken their stuff and they didn't have the right car to move things, so David would sometimes rent a moving truck. But that one moment of panic that Tracy let the detectives see was enough for them to know that they had their suspect. They just had to prove it. They analyzed the surveillance tapes from the supermarket parking lot where David's car had been abandoned. At around 1:30 in the morning, just a half hour before David's burning body would be discovered, the tapes caught his white Lexus pulling into the lot. And wouldn't you know, that woman looked a whole heck of a lot like Tracy Frame. Detectives rewound the tapes until they saw the black Lexus entering the parking lot 4 hours earlier. A woman got out, walked across the lot to a moving van, got in, and drove away. So then they were like, okay, well, when did the van get there? So they rewound the tapes until they saw the rental truck pulling into the lot the previous afternoon. They watched as a female driver got out and walked home with a large black dog. Tracy, of course, had a large black dog, but the cameras were so far away that there was no way to 100% confirm that Tracy was the woman in the tapes. Surveillance videos also capture the woman entering the store to shop on the night David's body was discovered. While the cameras had trouble picking up the woman's exact location throughout the store, they definitely picked her up when she checked out at the register. The woman purchased garbage bags and 2 bottles of muriatic acid, a solvent usually used in heavy-duty cleaners. And then, in order to save 34 cents on her purchase, the woman used her discount shopper's card. Store records showed that the name on the card belonged to none other than Tracy Frame. Now, after checking out, she drove off in the rental van. Investigators went to the rental van company and asked to inspect it. They found no signs of vitality fluid or acid in the vans, but those tire impressions though. They took photos of the tires and analyzed them against the prints found near David's body. Not all 6 tires were identical and had different patterns and marks on them, but that only helped them confirm for certain that this was the exact van that dumped the body. While talking with the company employees, investigators also got their answer to how Tracy had managed to move the body all by herself. Along with the keys to the rental van, the company also provided customers with a hand truck to move large furniture. They realized that all Tracy would have to do is put the hand truck next to the body on the bed, roll the body onto it, and strap him on. Once he was secured onto it, she was able to pull that truck wherever the hell she wanted. Investigators believe that David had been wanting to end his relationship with Tracy, but Tracy didn't want to give up the house. They reasoned that while David slept, Tracy took the unregistered firearm that David kept in the house and used it to assassinate him. She wrapped the body in blankets from the bed, then the next day, drove David's Lexus to the rental place and rented the moving van. She waited until nightfall, then moved quickly, dragging David's body on the hand truck out of the house and into the van. She then drove 14 miles out to a desolate parking lot where she attempted to dump the body down a large drainage ditch, but it wouldn't fit. She panicked and bounced, leaving behind all the tire impressions as she drove off, worried about people noticing the giant moving van at her house for too long. Tracy decided to park it at the supermarket, then walked home with her dog. It seemed that she thought out every element of the crime in order to keep suspicion off of her, But she made one mistake. She forgot about the fact that it's pretty much impossible to be in a public without being captured on multiple surveillance cameras. On Sunday night, Tracy went back to the supermarket to buy all those goodies that she saved 34 cents off of. It's truly the best detail in the entire story. 34 cents, that's it. That night, she cleaned the truck, doused David's body in gasoline, set it on fire, and then exchanged vehicles again before finally returning home. Tracy was found with these weird bruises on her thighs that were in a straight line, and investigators realized that this was the exact spot that the handcart would have hit her legs as she was loading it onto the van. One of Tracy's friends recalled Tracy complaining about David and not wanting to be with him anymore. Her friend was like, well, then why don't you just leave him? Allegedly, Tracy responded, because if I did, I'd be living in an apartment and driving a Honda. Boom, there you have it. In March of 2005, the jury only took 4 hours to convict Tracy Frame, and she was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Wow, what a gal. I bet an apartment and a Honda is starting to sound real nice to Tracy right about now. Tracy might have thought she planned out every step in advance, but she had to save those pennies and dimes. The surveillance tapes and discount card were the final crack in the taquito shell that would cause those spicy chickpeas to spill. Until next time, my taquito bonitos,